South African Revenue Service has announced that it will postpone the deadline for a new cigarette tracking system. Hashtag TakeBackTheTax recently shared concern that the proposed new cigarette tracking system will fail to crack down thoroughly on South Africa's multi-billion rand illegal cigarette trade. To talk more about this, I'm joined on the line by the spokesperson of hashtag TakeBackTheTax, Yusuf Abramjee. A very good evening to you, Yusuf. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's first start with, what was the major concern? Was it around the short time allocated for proposals or just the system in itself?
Good evening. Well, a number of issues were raised last week by the Tobacco Institute of Southern Africa through its chairperson, Francois van der Merwe. And we said and made it very clear that a rushed new system for the tracking of cigarettes in South Africa will be disastrous. We believe there hasn't been enough consultation. We believe there hasn't been enough thinking about the execution of this particular proposed tender. And that is why TakeBackTheTax applauds the decision by the South African Revenue Services, which they announced on Friday, postponing the deadline for the controversial new tracking system. Now, among the concerns that we raised last week was the possible failure to crack down thoroughly on the multi-billion rand illegal cigarette trade. And this could have disastrous effects for SARS, because we know that about 8 billion rand is lost in taxes every year because of the illegal cigarette trade. And that is why, we are of the view that any flawed track and trace system would allow the illegal cigarette industry to flourish and therefore threaten the jobs of tens of thousands of tax-paying members of the legal industry.
Is there any particular way or form that you would like to see the stakeholder consultations take place?
Well, I think it needs to be said that any rush system will have major consequences, not only for SARS but also for the industry. We know that the small emerging informal retail business depends heavily on making sure that they flourish, and we can ill afford extra onerous costs to be forced upon these fragile enterprises, and that is why we want consultation between the manufacturers, the wholesalers, and the retailers. We believe that consultation is critical, and that is why the decision by SARS Commissioner Edward Kiswetter on Friday to postpone the tender pending further consultation, we believe is an excellent move, because we needed to put this entire process on pause. It was a rushed decision, and we want the consultation between all the stakeholders. We want it to be thoroughly thought out. We need to make sure that this system works meticulously before any tenders are invited. And that is why we want the industry, all stakeholders within the industry, to be part of the consultation process to make sure that all the loopholes are closed. And that is why we want to join SARS in saying that we agree that we all need to fight the illegal cigarette trade. We believe the tracking system has its many advantages, but it cannot be executed, and there needs to be a round-table process so that these concerns can be adequately addressed by all the stakeholders, and SARS can then decide on the way forward.
So for it to do that, Yusuf, it would have to take into account the nuances of South Africa's tobacco industry. What are they?
Well, we know, first of all, that the cigarette trade is massive, that we know that the illegal cigarette trade is costing us about 8 billion rand per year. Ipsos surveys last year and even earlier this year indicated that this trade was flourishing, and we need to make sure that this consultation process is very, very meticulous and it's well thought through. We know that, for example, the minimum excise payable on a packet of 20 cigarettes is 19 rand some odd cents, and some of these people are selling these cigarettes far below the minimum taxes payable, which means they are evading the laws. They are promoting lawlessness, and people are depending on these cheap cigarettes. We cannot afford to lose this money to our fiscus, because the South African community, the people of South Africa, need much needed services, from basic services to service delivery, and every rand to the fiscus makes a difference. And I think that is why it's important for us as civil society, for us as people within the industry, to make sure that we promote the legal industry and say no to illegal cigarettes. We also know that SARS has decided some time ago. The Nugent Commission also made its findings very clear. They need to clamp down on the illegal cigarette trade. These people are acting with impunity, and I think the quicker SARS clamps down, the better. But I must say SARS has made some great strides. They now have inspectors 24/7 at some of the cigarette factories. They're also clamping down on the smuggling and the sale of illegal cigarettes, but much more needs to be done, and that is why we are supporting SARS in their clampdown.
So earlier on, Yusuf, you mentioned the jobs that could be under threat. Which industries do they affect, or what kind of jobs are there?
Well, it could be anyone from the retail industry. It could be your ordinary shopkeeper, people that are employed because they're going to lose their income. It could be people within the cigarette industry itself, people working in the factories. We know the unions are very active. The Food and Allied Workers Union, for example, have repeatedly raised concerns about job losses within the industry. And we know that this industry is going through some difficult time as well. And yet the illegal cigarette traders are manufacturers are continuing to act and to show disregard for the law. And that is why we want SARS to act and to act very, very quickly. And that is why this process, if it just rushed through, is going to lead to job losses. It's going to lead to the closure of many retailers. It's going to have an effect on the manufacturers and the wholesalers. As much as we want the legal industry to make sure that we make sure that the technology is being used, we must make 100% sure that the technology is being properly used. And I think that is a very imperative part of the consultation process.
Final question, Yusuf. Do we know the profile of these billionaire illegal traders, criminal bosses?
Certainly, they openly, people know who they openly are. In fact, these cigarettes are being sold for under 19 Rand. Since started this clampdown, they started to increase their prices slowly to 20, 21 Rand, which means that they're probably still not paying their taxes. Even if you can sell a packet of 20 cigarettes for 22, 23 Rand, it's virtually impossible to manufacture it at that price, which means they are possibly still evading taxes. These people are openly manufacturing these cigarettes, and that is why the SARS clampdown, particularly by them posting people in these factories, has gone a very long way to clamp down on the illegal cigarette trade, and we are confident that SARS, especially under the new leadership, unlike that what we saw under Tom Moyani, that messed up and made sure that these people get away so-called literally with criminality, under the new commissioner, we are confident that they're going to go the extra mile and clamp down on the illegal cigarette trade, and that's something that we welcome and we will fully support as TakeBackTheTax and the Tobacco Institute of Southern Africa.
All right. Thank you for talking to us, spokesperson of #TakeBackTheTax, Yusuf Abramjee, on the line there with us.